Back in fifth grade, I eagerly anticipated the arrival of a brand new book from Scholastic, George Sullivan's They Shot the President, 10 True Stories. I was mostly interested in the chapter on the death of President Lincoln. Good night, Mr. President. Goodbye, Crook. While John Wilkes Booth, Charles Guiteau, and Leon Czolgosz connected with their presidential targets mere feet away, it is said JFK's assassin was the work of a patient, calculated sniper, a hardened ex-Marine, a cold-blooded communist. This guy. Sullivan billed Oswald as a, quote, social misfit, a lifelong loner, end quote, with, quote, emotional difficulty. What was Oswald's motive in killing Kennedy? Sullivan writes. Did he act out of hatred for American society? Was he seeking a place in history, a role as a great man? Nobody knows, and he was killed before he got a chance to say, end quote. Sullivan tracks Oswald's movements beginning on Thursday, November 21st. Quote, he explained to co-worker Wesley Frazier he wanted to pick up some, quote, curtain rods, Sullivan's quotations, to use in his room, which already had curtains and curtain rods, end quote. Sullivan explains that on the morning of November 22nd, Oswald came out of the garage, quote, carrying a package wrapped in brown paper that was about the size of a rifle, end quote. Sullivan said Oswald had picked out a window on the sixth floor from which he planned to shoot, and that Oswald learned from newspapers, quote, his victim would be delivered to him at his place of work, end quote. Sullivan writes Oswald waited patiently until the car turned onto Elm, away from the window. According to Sullivan, Oswald's first bullet hit the branch of a live oak tree. Then he, quote, got a bead on the president's head and fired, end quote. Here, Sullivan summarizes the single bullet theory for his young readers, from traversing the president's upper back, exiting his throat, and then striking Connally in numerous places. Quote, a third bullet from Oswald's rifle struck Kennedy in the back of his head. End quote. After being spotted near a Coke machine, Sullivan tells us Oswald boarded a bus, then a cab to his boarding house, where he donned a zippered jacket and 38 caliber pistol and several cartridges. At 1:15 p.m., Sullivan writes, Patrolman Tippit spots Oswald walking and calls him over to his squad car. Oswald walks to the passenger window and chats with Tippit. When Tippit gets out, Oswald shoots him 4 times and flees the scene in panic. A witness hearing Oswald mutter, poor damn cop or poor dumb cop. At the Texas Theater, Sullivan relates Oswald hit Patrolman McDonald in the face and pulled his pistol as he was arrested. Sullivan then lists the evidence against Oswald. A Mannlicher Carcano found on the sixth floor and 3 cartridge cases. Oswald, alias Alec James Hiddell, ordered the rifle in March 1963. Sullivan explains Oswald's palm print was found on the rifle and cotton fibers clinging to the rifle butt matched fibers from Oswald's 3-color shirt. The backyard photos of Oswald posing, taken by Marina, and that he liked to practice using the bolt mechanism and to peer through the crosshairs. The discovery of the paper bag on the sixth floor, the one used for the curtain rods, which also had Oswald's palm print and fingerprint. Sullivan mentions witnesses who placed Oswald at the Tippit scene, and ballistics tests show bullets in Tippit's body were fired from Oswald's revolver. And the untimely murder of Oswald himself? Jack Ruby was deeply disturbed by the murder of the president and what Kennedy's loss meant to his widow and their children, Sullivan wrote. I can understand that. And so for almost 30 years hence, I subscribe to what Sullivan told me back in fifth grade. And why not? Oswald fit the bill like the others in the book as bitter outcasts. Case closed. 4 days after the assassination, an Irving, Texas concerned housewife wrote a letter to J. Edgar Hoover in which she called for a, quote, thorough investigation into the shooting. Mrs. Delmer Woodburn, wife of a World War II veteran and young mother of 3, posed 10 points of concern in her letter to the FBI director, raising questions that continue to remain puzzling over 61 years later. I watched the newscasts consistently, and throughout the entire time, there were constant happenings that to me just do not sound logical. I sincerely hope that there is an answer to have a city free of guilt. Below, I have listed some of them. I have linked Mrs. Woodburn's entire letter in the description below. Here are some of her points. If Oswald were calm, a marksman and trained Marine, would he not realize he couldn't leave all that evidence? If the police had as many policemen as they said they did on duty that day and being aware of the possibility of an incident, why was there not a dragnet put around that building immediately and no one allowed either in or out of the building? Was Oswald just picked for a front because he was a known communist and an undesirable? If he did do this act, did he do it for money with the promise of someone to get him off? District Attorney Wade said there was a bill of sale for a purchased gun as far back as March found in Oswald's wallet. Why would he carry this around all this time if it were paid for? Could this have been planted? Why did the police glamorize a character such as Ruby as being a help and friend to several policemen and newsmen? This in itself makes you wonder. And where did Ruby get the newsman press card the day Oswald was shot? Why was Ruby or anyone allowed near where they were transferring the prisoner, especially when they were warned an attempt was to be made on Oswald's life? I believe that there are doubts among citizens here in Dallas. It would be ironic if the men really guilty of President Kennedy's death would get away when the American people loved him so much. I invite viewer feedback to genuinely help me get to the truth with the following. When did Oswald know the route of the motorcade? Which newspaper, which issue, and when would he have read this? He always planned on acting as a sniper. Why not take his .38 and simply walk out onto the street and point blank range as his predecessors, Booth, Guiteau, and Czolgosz did, as he apparently did with Tippit? The scorebook cited as proof of Oswald's marksmanship on November 22nd dates back 7 years to his first few months in the Marines, 1956. So what about his score in his last year in the Marines? He scored 191 out of 250, 4 years before the assassination. Why did Warren Castor bring two rifles of his own to the book depository on the 20th? Is it not fair to assume that Oswald, if he did bring a rifle and not curtain rods, was bringing one in a blue-collar contest of, can you top this? Why did he choose a bolt-action rifle and not a fully automatic? What witnesses placed Oswald firing from the 6th floor? Was Oswald lying when he told Captain Fritz he was watching the parade out in front with Bill Shelley? Was Oswald lying in front of television cameras in a room of reporters when he said he didn't shoot anybody? What exactly was his motive? A leftist killing a liberal? How do we square the bullet found by Paul Landis in the limousine with a single bullet theory? Which Oswald bullet struck the front windshield of the motorcade? Why did agents arrive at the funeral home to fingerprint Oswald's fingers and palms while mortician Paul Grudy was preparing the body?
Come on, man. No, they're taking me in because of the fact that I live in the village. I'm just a patsy.